All right, so today is chapter 8 of Tao Te Ching, Avoiding Conflict. People of the highest virtue are like water. Water benefits creation without any conflict, and it favors the low places shunned by the common people. In this it resembles the Tao. Live in harmony with the land, allow emotions to run deep, show benevolence in your dealings with others, speak with honesty, arrange things according to the proper order, manage according to your ability, act according to opportunity. Without conflict, there is no animosity. Okay, so let's talk about it. People of the highest virtue are like water. I'm reminded almost immediately of that quote from Bruce Lee. And I'm not going to quote him exactly, but the idea with that quote was that water takes on the form of whatever container it's in. You sort of roll with the punches, so to speak. But this seems to be indicating, obviously Bruce Lee was a fighter, and this is indicating the opposite sort of thing, avoiding conflict. And so while it might be true that water is infinitely malleable to different situations, different containers, the text here demonstrates, well, not really demonstrates, but shows examples of how, at least in terms of philosophy, how water really has like infinite ways of being interpreted, for lack of a better word. I mean, it's even difficult for me to put into words exactly, but water benefits creation without any conflict. I don't think there's anything I can add to that. It favors the low places, shunned by the common people. In this, it resembles the Tao. At the risk of just repeating the same passage over again, it really does feel like, at least to me, there's not a whole lot more that can be said about this, only because the text says it so succinctly, showing benevolence, acting according to opportunity, and without conflict there is no animosity. So, what else is there to say except that is more or less a perfect description of a water philosophy. So, basically, my interpretation here is that this has the most common interpretation of water is that water is, like, if you think of the ocean, for example, the ocean is deep and it hides a lot of things. And there are dangerous things that you can't see just below you. There are people who will talk about how water is dangerous, that it, if you think about tsunamis or a tidal wave, that water is to be respected. And of course, I mentioned the Bruce Lee point about how, water in a container, it changes its shape to match the container's shape. It's malleable in that way. But here, it just, like I said, it so succinctly breaks down the idea that water it's more than just those things. It's something that can be dangerous. It's something that can be obscuring or opaque. It can be malleable. It can also be the exact opposite of that. Water is really, water is either violent or non-violent. And this text is choosing, and I would say respectfully so, choosing to interpret it in the non-violent form, which is a choice I can't really speak more highly of. Like it's a 100% valid choice to see water as something that is essential but doesn't use conflict to push its necessity on others. And it should also be said that if you consider this philosophy to be valid, which I do, then acting like water in that way, this sort of nonviolent, sort of anti-conflict approach, that should be considered possibly one of the highest goods, so to speak, that you can do, is to try to avoid conflict and make your, kind of like how a lot of the other chapters have stated, you make your ability or your wants and or possibly even your power, so to speak, known through inaction, particularly when it comes to violence and conflict. Let's move on to the image here on the right-hand side. So we have a footnote at the bottom, which says, 2 Taoist gods sit on a rock in heaven. Chengdu, China. I wonder which 2 Taoist gods those are supposed to be. What are they the gods of? I don't know very much about the supernatural side of Taoism. I don't really know much about Taoism itself, aside from what I've read in this book and a few other places, kind of piecemealed here and there. But I'm enjoying what I'm learning so far. And they all seem like, so far what I've read seem like valid practices for a level-headed approach to living your life. And I do wonder what the supernatural elements were. I'm something of a fan of supernatural mythos. And so the philosophies and the politics aside, I think it could be interesting to learn more about the supernatural side of it as well, just to see what it was that Taoists believed in from a spiritual standpoint, rather than just from a purely political or philosophical perspective, or I guess you could say ideological. As far as the image is concerned, wonder if there's anything that I could derive from the meaning, or derive any meaning from the image, I should say. Now, okay, so the footnote says 2 Taoist gods sit on a rock in heaven, but one of them is not sitting. The other one is, one of them is standing and gesturing, and the other is listening. So it would be hard to interpret necessarily what's going on, but it's almost like one of them is making a presentation to the other, maybe making some sort of a debate or some sort of a point of some kind to the other. And it looks like if they're in heaven and one of them is gesturing out to perhaps below where Earth is, presumably, maybe the discussion is about Earth and what to do about it, or what goes on down there. Aside from that, aesthetically, this is the first image I've seen in what feels like a while that actually feels like it's got some color to it. This looks like maybe could be watercolor, which would make sense. And it looks like they took the time to put some things in that were nicer and brighter than just the earthen colors that we've been seeing. I mean, technically green is an earthen color, but blue, I mean, the sky and the ocean are blue, sure. But blue is, from what I understand, is kind of rare in nature. And so they took the time to show each of these gods has something blue. Blue is also a very calming sort of color. It's used as a neutral, psychologically neutral and peace-oriented color. It makes sense for it to be in Chapter 8 about avoiding conflict. Well, that was Chapter 8. Next time, we'll be doing Chapter 9, which is called Recognizing Sufficiency. Thank you for listening, and I hope everybody who is listening is doing well.